Are you at home or at the office?
Office.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I took a longer lunch break because it was so perfect outside and I was done being inside.
Wasn't it so nice today? Okay.
Yeah.
Are you at home or? Okay, there we go. Now we're live on YouTube. I'm going to assign you as the host and then leave on this account. At the office. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now we're live on YouTube. Okay, looks like we're good to go. Outstanding. All right. I'm going to, I'll just leave this on. If you have any problems, let me know. And then in about 20 or 30 minutes, I'm just going to leave. And if you have any other issues, just send me an email or a text. Okay.
Okay. And are we, public comment is?
Public comment is only via email. So I'll be
Okay.
checking emails. If I get anything, I'll forward it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. And then if you need to turn off the YouTube, there is a, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner, you can stop the stream if you want to. Or if you just leave the meeting, it stops the stream anyway. But
perfect.
Just want to make sure you know you have that control. So if at the end someone says, oh, hang on just a minute, for one of your commissioners, you can turn off the YouTube and continue your meeting.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Any concerns or need anything else?
I think we're good.
All right. I know you can handle it. You're super smart. All right. Have a good meeting. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Okay. Rise and shine. We are live on YouTube, by the way.
Hey, Beth.
Hi. We're live right now, just to let you know.
Great. Hey, Leslie.
And she's out.
Okay. Are you managing?
Or will yes, ma'am.
Oh, way to go.
For public comments, I'm going to get forwarded them via email, so I'll let you know if we have any versus asking for each item.
Okay. Am I set up to screen share?
I don't believe so.
No, I'm not.
What did you have?
Well, I just had the agenda and the minutes. I had something from Canvas and then something that I know Kira's planning on talking about. I just sort of had everything kind of lined up in case we
I
wanted to
see.
share.
Let me see if I can modify that.
Okay. Hey, Laura.
Hey, Lacey. I was just reviewing the minutes and I'm glad I did.
Lacey, you want to try sharing?
I think I caught the same thing. Yep, it looks like I'm able to.
Okay.
Thank you. Laura,
Yes.
I was reaching out to you because I was wondering if we should maybe squeeze in a watering day.
Yeah. I texted you. Did you not get my text?
No, I didn't.
It was on Saturday.
No, I didn't get it.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I'll double check. Maybe it never sent. Sometimes it does that.
Well, I just got a new phone too, so it could have been that.
Same number though. Yeah?
Yep.
So yeah, no, we are overdue for a watering given
Yeah.
unseasonably warm temperatures and absolutely no rain. So
Yeah, we got a little bit spoiled there for a couple of weeks.
yeah, it mellowed out for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a work day at Highland Otis Park Saturday morning.
What's that one? Where's that one?
Highland Otis Park is it's like the original FOSPA park. It's not too far from where we're at. It is trying to describe it.
Is it the one by the market?
What is that?
Is it the one by the World Market or whatever it's called?
No.
Hmm.
It's like a couple blocks downhill from the international school,
Okay.
maybe 2 or 3 blocks just downhill from there.
Okay. It's not the one with the bridge, right?
No, it has a cannon. That's its hallmark.
I don't know if I've ever been to that
It's
one.
decorated apparently by Seaside High School in a bright red and black. It's lovely.
Okay. Hey, Kristen.
Oh, I was muted. Hello.
Hi, Kristen.
Evening, everyone.
Where are you? Or are you just taking extra COVID precautions on this Zoom
Oh,
call?
I'm actually just about to head home from the office, so I still have a mask on.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
Yeah.
as a quick reminder, or for me, if I wanted to just give you all an official heads up about something which doesn't need to be thought about or done anything with at this meeting, would that be an acceptable thing to mention it in the reports from commissioner section?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
I like your festive background, Lacey. It's nice to see.
Oh, thank you.
Festive. Lovely.
I'm in my son's room. We got these super cute little skinny trees like before we even had kids at Last Chance. And we used to put them outside. And then we had kids and we're like, oh, let's put them in their rooms. So they get to decorate them. And my son likes a lot of bling. So this one's pretty glittery.
That's really fun. I like it.
Yeah, it's cute. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Diane, welcome.
We can't hear you.
You're muted. There we go.
The old mute thing.
There you are. Yep.
Well, I was going to stay quiet until it was my turn.
Sure.
We haven't quite started yet, so
Oh,
we're chatting.
But we are live.
We are live.
okay. No swearing.
That's good. We like that.
I'm going to mute myself for now.
Hi, Mariana.
Hello.
Hey, everyone. I think we are at quorum at least. So, and we're after 5:30. So I'm going to get started just to keep us all on time.
Mhm.
So let's do roll call. Instead of having you all go through, because that can get a little bit awkward on Zoom, I'll just call your names and you can say here. Kira,
Here.
Chelsea. Chelsea actually let me know that she won't be able to make it tonight. She has a work conflict. Mariana,
Here.
Laura,
Here.
Lori. Well, I am here, so we are still at quorum and we can get started.
You didn't call my name?
Oh,
Did I miss
not?
me?
Oh, I
Nope.
didn't. You're on my list. I'm sorry. Kristen.
Here.
Kristen. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So before we go any further, has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? And is there anything that you'd like to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Seeing none. We'll move on. Beth, this is the point for public comment. Do you want to let me know if there's anybody there with public comment?
None.
None. Okay. The next item is the approval of minutes. I want to note one change that I noticed in reviewing the minutes. On item E, the election of the chair and vice chair, we actually voted to keep as is. So I'll remain chair and Kristen will remain vice chair. Sorry, Laura.
Thank goodness. No need to apologize.
I thought you might like that. And then any other changes noted to the minutes, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Only just on the roll call. Again, I'm listed twice on the roll call, and I want to make sure that otherwise all correct members who were present were listed.
Yeah, Mariana, were you there? I thought you were there.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe that's another change just to, it looks like, probably replace Laura with Mariana. So maybe that was the mistake. Murphy was on twice and Mariana was on one, wasn't on. Okay, so noting those two changes, are there any other changes, or is there a motion to approve with the changes mentioned?
I can motion to approve the minutes of our previous meeting, which was Tuesday, August 11th of 2020.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor of approving the minutes with the suggested changes from August 11th, 2020?
Hi.
All opposed?
Bye.
Okay, minutes pass. Moving on to the business items. We have three speakers this evening, so we're going to start with them. We're very happy you are all able to join us. Diane, you are first on the agenda, so if you would like to begin, please do so. You might be muted again.
Sorry, my mute button went somewhere else when that came up. So
Yeah,
I searched for it.
no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. The reason I'm here tonight is because I like your committee for one thing, but the other reason is part of the Parks and Recreation Commission duties is to assess tree and landscaping needs in the parks and trails. And this fiscal year 2021, I've started a work project to plant 15 trees or tree-like shrubs, mostly in the parks, in collaboration with your environmental commission. And after some initial research that I've done, and then input from City Planner Beth Rocha and Commissioner Laura Murphy, I created a preliminary plan to share suggestions of native trees to plant and possible locations and how they would be cared for, theoretically, and estimated cost, a rough cost of the project, which I'll go over in a minute. And after you've had time to review and consider the information, our commission, Parks and Rec, would like your thoughts, ideas, and collaboration in helping to create a successful planting project. I've also sent requests for input for tree suggestions to Sustainable Seaside, a local nursery person, and a garden club, which is still forthcoming. This project probably won't be, it's not going to happen next month, that's for sure. But we're looking forward to working with you and getting it off the ground. So the list of trees and tree-like shrubs, as you can see, coast live oak. I'm not going to go over the attributes and such, other than to say, unless you ask me to, other than to say they were chosen because most all of them are native and successful and beneficial to wildlife and pollinators, and they're attractive. And if you have any questions on the trees there, you can let me know now or later. And the locations were chosen because they have current stewards and they have access to the water truck at this time. They're on the water truck's schedule. And the parks have been suggested by other people who that are in their neighborhoods, like FOSPA and such. The other possibility for locations are green spaces, which I really couldn't find any of on a map, and I haven't spoken with anybody about that, but that would probably be a little more difficult for care. And the other consideration that was mentioned was the possibility of planting them in residents' yards who need to replace a tree that has been removed. And that'd be a great thing to do, but I'm not, there's no plan in place for that at this time. But just the next line is the cost of the trees. I have looked around and I've approximated $200 for each, which would be about $3,000. And then possible watering bags that the water trucks, whoever's meeting the water truck, could fill up the watering bags for 20 gallons of water that could be released slowly, which could help them be more successfully watered. And I don't know if you use planting baskets for trees, maybe for shrubs to begin with, so they don't get destroyed by critters underground. And then the care, the first year of is critical, as you know, to establish them and to have them watered regularly, but most of them are drought tolerant and wouldn't probably need watering unless we were in a drought once they get established. So the current stewards of parks, FOSPA, residents of yards, if they are planted in a yard, could monitor the watering and maybe, do light maintenance until they're established. And that, I think, is it. I think that's my presentation. Oh, here's some pictures of, I think that's bitter cherry up in the left corner. And then there's the Coast live oak. And then I believe that's a manzanita. That might be a manzanita on the right. The California redbud, which is a beautiful, colorful tree. Then we have, I don't know if that's Monterey ceanothus, but Monterey ceanothus would be recommended. And silk, wavy leaf silk tassel is in the center bottom, which a lot of these plants are successfully growing on the corner of Canyon Del Rey and Fremont Street, where they started the native plant garden some 25 years ago. So some of the ones I've suggested are growing there already, like the California or Catalina ironwood on the left, the tall tree, which is next to the Fremontia. I call it a Fremontia, Fermentodendron flannel bush on the bottom, which is very successful here. And I think that's a Dr. Hurd manzanita, which grows tree-like and would be a beautiful addition to our seaside landscape. And is that the last slide, Beth?
I believe so.
Okay. I don't know if you had any before that because I was looking at a piece of paper earlier. So I'm not sure you were showing. I saw two
No,
slides.
I think we covered them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And that's it. And I look forward to working with you on your suggestions and your expertise in this area. And we'll go forward from after you have a chance to look at this and come up with any suggestions for different.
I have two quick questions.
Yes.
Or just the first was just a general question, no strong feelings about it, but I noticed that there were no like pines or cypress or any of those traditionally evergreen. Was there a particular reason for that choice?
Not really, no.
Okay.
But that's a great idea.
Yeah. Anecdotally, they seem to establish pretty well on our nice dune soil. And then the second question was, like, from an environmental committee standpoint, as opposed to a Parks and Recs standpoint, greening seaside overall, I think is a good goal. I think as an environmental committee, I would not mind putting them in people's yards if that was getting to a goal of replacing trees or greening seaside. But I know that's certainly not something that we've done really with our pollinator plants. So from your perspective as Parks and Rec, with parks in mind, what would you say are the barriers to including replacement residential trees in this plan?
I don't really see any barriers because it's generally, I mean, there's more information about our responsibility, and it's not just parks and trails, it's the whole city, more or less, looking at the whole city, not just in the parks. So I honestly don't see that as a barrier. We would just need to find out how to broadcast that and let residents know who are taking down trees.
Great. Yeah, I know of some dead and trees in my area where I wish I could hand someone a flyer being like, would you like to replace that tree, as opposed to just take it out. So this is a very interesting thought. This is the first I heard about it.
Yeah, and that thought didn't come from me. It came from someone else. So I can't take credit for it, but I think it's a great idea.
Kudos to them. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the commission members?
So I might just speak up and comment. I don't have a particular question. I've had the pleasure of being able to interact with Diane quite a bit. And she took me out to the corner garden. It's the first time I've heard of that place quite a bit, and I've passed by it a lot, but I haven't gone in to visit until Diane invited me. And that was an excellent opportunity to see some of these examples of these plants growing. So I definitely have already provided my input as the Habitat Subcommittee for the Environmental Commission. So if anybody else on the commission had something to add, suggestion-wise, thanks, Kristen, for your input also. And then Diane, because the Parks and Rec Commission has, I think, recreational programs and a lot of programming experience as a commission, I think it's a really good opportunity to be able to incentivize and put together some kind of a program that might bring these kinds of habitat concerns and interests to the broader community. So I'm really excited to hear about that. Although you're humble and said it was someone else's idea to incentivize or make possible planting and replacement of trees in residential areas, that would be a really nice thing to see happen. And I think that the Environmental Commission kind of education and outreach could also really benefit from working together on something like that. Thanks so much for your presentation.
Thanks. You're welcome.
I have no questions. I just want to say thank you, Diane, for this presentation. And it seems like a a really good step forward.
Thank you.
I have a question / comment if there's no other comments or questions from other commission members. I think I might be a voice of, I don't know, dissent about the residential, putting the trees in residential locations. If we don't have one already, I believe we have talked previously about having some type of a tree policy where if you remove a tree, you replace that tree 2 to 1, maybe modeled after the County of Monterey's tree replacement policy or the City of Monterey's. I think if we're going to spend, if these are public funds, I think we should be spending them in public parks rather than private residence locations. So that would just be my comment on that, would be to prioritize parks and to prioritize parks where that list that you had was good. I think looking at, the soil and what might need to be done to kind of help the soil to ensure some of these trees will survive and flourish might be another added cost to consider, if we need to do a lot of amendments or anything like that. I'd have to look back. Maybe you had that in there and I just missed it.
No, no.
Okay, but other than that, I really love this. I love trees. I think they add so much, not just to the environment, but to our society overall. I mean, you go up to Jack's Peak and you look down and there's just such a stark contrast. You can almost draw a line between where Monterey ends and Seaside begins by the lack of trees in Seaside compared to Monterey. And maybe some of that is microclimate related and our ecosystem doesn't handle it as much as or as well as Monterey. But I also think we maybe just cut down too many trees along the way while we were developing, and it would be nice to re-tree some of our community. So I really support this effort. And as you continue along, I think if there are specific asks that you have of us, I believe Laura is kind of working as your liaison, so you can communicate those to her and she can present them, or we'd be happy to have you back to update us as you continue. Is there anything specific that you need right now as you think about your next steps, or was this just sort of a general first introduction?
Yes, this was general first introduction, asking for any input, like your thoughts so far, and tree suggestions of things that maybe might not be on our radar right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I just wanted you to be part of this and see this initial plan, ever changing.
Yes, as they do. Well,
Yeah.
again, on behalf of the commission, thank you so much for your work that you've put into this so far. And I think we're all very happy to support this effort wherever we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, are there any public comments?
None.
Okay. We will then move on to business item B, which is the community garden at Havana Solitz Park, and reached out to Robert to invite him to attend our meeting and share a little bit for his vision. Many of you perhaps saw the article in the Weekly, and perhaps that was the first time you'd heard about this effort. I stumbled across the work that he's been doing just on a walk through that park and was really energized to see some love going into that park. So Robert, if you are, looks like you're still with us. If you want to just share a little bit about your vision for that park and if there's anything we can do to support your efforts, we're happy to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry about my video. My internet's been kind of shoddy, So I tried to turn it on in the last meeting and actually got kicked out. So I apologize on that note. My vision for the park is it's really actually like a neighborhood vision. I tried not to make it specifically what I wanted. So I've been very adamant on asking different neighbors on their vision of the park also. So what we kind of came up with was planter boxes. There's a huge gopher infestation in the park. So we had planted some beans about 2 months ago, and the gophers completely ate them up. So we've been trying to find funding for like planter boxes, gopher wires, and some soil. We did some soil testings a few months back as well, and the park's completely stripped of nitrogen. We think that was due to the ice plant infestation, which it took us probably like 2 weeks to completely pull all the flowers and the roots out. But, yeah, our biggest problem is kind of like centralizing funding and trying to petition the city for funding. We noticed that like the city doesn't directly give allocations to individuals. So we was wondering if there was a certain way we could approach that. But the biggest goal moving forward is kind of like an agricultural mindset. We're trying to bring recreation, but also a community garden to where the food can be dispersed around the community and also maybe influence the homeless as well.
That sounds great. Are there any questions or comments from the commission members?
So I'll speak up. Hi, Robert. It's really a pleasure for me to get to hear your voice. So I heard first about your project quite a while back now, a few months anyway, from folks over at Sustainable Seaside, I think, that interacted with you maybe in the adjacent park at Lincoln Cunningham. Anyway, we haven't had a chance to actually cross paths until now. So it's really great to be able to hear your vision directly from you. And also been able to pass through and see the work, and it's totally inspiring, like Lacey had said. So a lot of the pollinator plants that were provided to that project actually came, for the commission's awareness, came from us, came from our remaining stock of pollinator plants, although they've been through a lot. As you all know, we received them a year ago and they've been in gallon pots. And so I think that Robert and his crew have given a lot of love and given some of them a new lease on life. And it's really huge, the whole project there. There's a whole variety of different types of plantings, including the pollinator plantings. So it's good to know we have other stewards in a whole new park. And I'd really love sometime to come out and actually meet in the fields and see kind of the layout. And then as far as the component of this project that is focused on pollinator plants and pollinator habitat support, we ourselves, or through our community partners that have project funding available for that, can help with soil amendments like compost to make sure that those plants have an opportunity to thrive, possibly even irrigation system components or support around that. So that's something that we should be able to offer.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I just wanted to chime in and also say I was excited about the work. And very randomly in 2015, I was working with a different community group before the playground was upgraded in that area. And there were some already at the time some very neglected plantings. So I'm happy to see someone step forward. And like Laura said, the Environmental Commission can certainly go for specific materials since we've done that to support other plantings.
Thank you, Robert, for definitely giving us your vision, and it's very inspiring, your story and the work that you're doing out there. We really appreciate it. And I'm glad that the Environmental Commission can help in some way. I guess this is more directed to maybe Lacey, or just thinking about what other ways we can support when it comes to funding, or if there's any other resources or places where we can point Robert towards.
Yeah, I think I haven't, Beth maybe knows what our budget situation is now better than I do, but I'm happy to explore ideas for supporting this project and this vision. There probably are some grants out there. I just don't know what they are off the top of my head. But I think that's definitely something that we can work with. Robert sort of mentioned a challenge of, not being able to give money directly to an individual. And the only organization that I know of is FOSPA that sort of, I'm sure there's others, but I think we could explore, FOSPA doesn't have to be the only avenue through which to support our parks. It's a great organization, but I think they themselves would be probably, just as eager to say, hey, the more groups that we have supporting our parks, the better. And so if there is, whether it's a, community partnerships for youth or a different type of organization that is also working on improving this park, that's another avenue. So I don't think we have to follow this familiar channels in order to fund and support this project. So Robert, it might just be, I'm happy to sit down and have just like a one-on-one conversation with you and get some more ideas, and maybe we can put a little bit of a budget together. If you already have a budget created, you can just share it and we can go from there.
Ma'am, I don't have a budget per se. I have like a small itinerary. I could share it in the chat box, I believe.
Okay. I know there's lots of people here who work at the aquarium. The aquarium does a grant round. Maybe they're probably not doing it this year, just because of the economic hardship that has been facing the aquarium. But those little micro grants.
Lacey, I can speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it, Kara.
Or Kristen, she can't do. It's an employee supported grant, so I don't know yet. Kristen, speak up if you have more info than me. I don't know yet what the total funding will be this year. It's possible that it will be less because we have 40% fewer employees, but I think, Kristen, is the fund coming back? They had it on hold, but I'm sorry, I really don't have the info. I figured it would still exist because I'm still contributing to it. And I think it's exactly for the kind of work that Robert and Diane are doing. It's for restoration of local habitats, right?
Yeah, so there may need to be some conversation about how this ties in with specific wording, but I know we are trying to make it a little bit less strict. So the unfortunate news is that yes, there's less contributions going into it, but the convenient news is that we held off awarding the grant in 2020, which means we have 2020's award amount plus any further contributions, so that when 2021 rolls around, we'll have a larger amount to distribute. And in general, you just need an employee sponsor. We can pass on the application to you, and then the number of approved projects, the total is divided among them. So there is a potential for funding there, and we will be awarding grants in 2021.
What's the timeline that you award them? Just out of curiosity.
Normally we start accepting grants in like February, March. I think the committee normally reminds everyone to get those in the beginning of the year. I don't know what the timeline is because my first year being on the aquarium committee that awards these grants was 2020, which means I missed on the actual awarding process. But yeah, so normally we start reminding people in February to get those proposals in.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I will speak up one more time. just to say, Robert, aside from the component that the environmental committee would be able to support and be interested in around our pollinator programming, the component of your project that has to do with community food security, establishing a community garden, things of that nature, which we're kind of discussing, I think, around potentially securing grants. That really fits well in my day job. I work as a soil scientist with the Resource Conservation District for Monterey County. And so my typical work is with farmers providing technical assistance. And so to the extent that you would be interested or could use additional technical assistance around understanding the soil and requirements, right, for growing food crops, I'd be happy to work with you directly on that as well.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. I'll definitely be willing to learn as much as I can.
Right. Well, I think this makes the most sense for the Habitat Committee to sort of take on, and Laura, since you're the head of that, I'll put you in charge.
All right, Lacey, Kristen, I'll be reaching back out.
Okay. Robert, thank you again so much for your work and for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it very much. Okay. Moving back to, oh, Beth, are there any public comments on that item?
Nothing.
Okay, thanks. The next item on the agenda is the Monterey County Climate Action Plan, and we have Ashley joining us from the county.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Lacey and Beth and everyone for having me. I'm really excited to learn about this committee and just be here to talk about the Monterey County Climate Action Plan. So I'm trying to think about how much you already know about what we're doing and like just sort of tie that into what you would like to really know. You know, so I think at the county, I started with the county in February, so almost a year now that I've been there, and just sort of picking up the program from where it left off back in 2016. The county did adopt a municipal climate action plan, which has to do with our internal county operations, and that was focused on the year 2020, but never actually adopted a climate action plan that was focused on the unincorporated county community wide. And obviously that kind of plan has a lot more impact on emissions reductions as a whole. And so, you know, upon sort of taking on this role and reaching out and finding out what was the most important thing to get done, or where the will was really, right, of the board, we were able to get the general plan policy regarding the greenhouse gas reduction policy for the community-wide emissions updated to focus on the 2030 state targets. And so have really been able to, I think, get the board kind of, you know, behind this initiative and begin the process to put some resources and funding towards the project. So I've been working really hard on a stakeholder engagement plan because, as you're probably well aware, I think the county has a really diverse set of stakeholders and, you know, a lot of really different, diverse, pressing issues related to climate change, and really wanting to kind of have a robust stakeholder plan to hear from the community so that, you know, we can actually get the plan adopted and make it possible. So I also run a committee at the county. It's the Alternative Energy and Environment Committee. And last week, yes, we held a meeting to discuss my stakeholder engagement plan in some detail. And, you know, what I think Jane Parker, Supervisor Parker, is the chair of that committee, and, you know, was really interested in understanding how we were going to partner with other jurisdictions, what we were going to do to kind of include other jurisdictions in the process. And when I first started, you know, not really having an understanding of what it meant to have so many different jurisdictions in one county. I kind of made an assumption that all of us would be able to work together to kind of create a plan and that would work for everyone. And you know what I've sort of learned, and that was sort of naive of me. I think anyway, what I've learned is that, you know, while we might all have similar desires to create a plan, we might have sort of different strategies for getting where we need to go. But in the end, Supervisor Parker really kind of wanted to make sure that there was at least some collaboration and cohesion as far as including jurisdictions and including, you know, especially around the issues of transportation, which I think will be really challenging for the county to cut emissions there. I think I'm going on a tangent now. So for what I had developed with the stakeholder engagement plan, and what I had really wanted to do was really share our stakeholder engagement plan with the jurisdictions. And, you know, because I'm not going to say when I have my meetings, I'm not going to restrict it to people that only live in the unincorporated county. I mean, I'm going to be reaching out to the public in general, different industries that are in the county and also in the jurisdictions, the local jurisdictions and cities. So, you know, I think there's definitely some areas where we can like play together. And I know AMBAG has been contracted to do the greenhouse gas inventories for the county and all of the cities. So I have proposed to AMBAG as part of their kind of reveal of those emissions inventories, if maybe during that meeting, we'll all be kind of coming together to hear about all of the sources of the emissions within our local jurisdiction area. And we can maybe at that time during that call, we can each take a few minutes to sort of say, hey, this is where we're at in terms of climate action planning, or this is what we've been thinking about or doing. And then I guess I could use that sort of, I was planning to maybe use that as an opportunity to say that, you know, we really want to welcome all of the cities into our process, whether it's sort of like as a listening standpoint, or whether there's some kind of like community addendum that's part of the report. I don't know how that would look. And I also want to just say, you know, that I did try to reach out to some of the cities like in the very beginning when I first joined the county, but as you could probably imagine, it was like right when the shelter in place was being issued, and a lot of cities were redirecting their resources to COVID-19. And so I just wasn't able to get as much traction maybe as I would have liked in the initial planning process. So basically, we're sort of on the pathway to issuing an RFP at this point. And I have a deadline for adoption of my plan by 2022. So to me, the stakeholder engagement process takes place kind of over the next, like, let's say from March and then plus 18 months. So it's a long stakeholder engagement process, really starting out with kind of visioning and goal setting, and then getting input from the community on strategies, and then, you know, taking those strategies back and evaluating what comes in and what we already know about what we should be doing, and then bringing that back out to our community again before finally writing that plan and then going back out for public comment. So there is still like time. And I don't know if there's, again, I don't know where the city of Seaside is in their climate action planning, but we do have, you know, maybe an opportunity, I would say, in the fact that like, as we're working on through this RFP and like negotiating with a consultant to perhaps get like a deal on some of the parts of this that that you might need to hire a consultant for. I mean, there's some aspects of a climate action plan that maybe you could reasonably do in-house. And then there's some aspects that like you definitely, I mean, not definitely, but I want to go out and get a consultant for the technical analysis of our plan. And so I guess that's sort of it as far as like an update. I was trying to kind of keep this geared towards like a really educated audience, but maybe if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I think really it would be great to hear from you about, you know, what you're thinking and provide kind of like a little bit of a dialogue between the two of us now, or two entities.
Thank you,
Hi,
Ashley.
Ashley.
I was just going to open it up. So Kira, if you want to go first, go ahead.
Thanks, Lacey. Thank you for that, Ashley. I'm really interested in exploring how our commission can add value and support to the process, whether it's a Seaside Climate Action Plan or an inclusive countywide action plan. Right now, I'm still trying to get my head around what is voluntary, what is a soft target, and what is mandatory. Like, I would love to see, and I'm sure this will be part of the consultant's report, so I don't expect you to be able to answer right now off the top of your head, Ashley. But given that the president-elect has said that he intends to re-enter the US in the Paris Agreement on January 21st, there will be targets related to that nationally. We have the governor's targets to meet California's emission reduction targets and renewable portfolios. And then I imagine, but don't know much about regional climate action plans and laws that are already in place. You know, I imagine that AMBAG has a role working with the California Air Resources Board. So I'm a little bit uncertain about how, you know, if the county is not going to include the jurisdictions in its process, other than as Ashley sort of described, like listeners or stakeholders, what is Seaside required to do, or is it just voluntary? It seems to me like with all of these targets from the global to regional level, Seaside is probably on the hook along with every other jurisdiction to make progress. So Ashley, any insight you can shed there would be really helpful.
Yeah. So for the county, so there's no like statutory requirement at the state level that says that you must adopt a climate action plan at this point. The 2017 scoping plan from the OPR, the State Office of Planning and Research, essentially calls out, you know, local governments as key stakeholders and like enactors of in meeting the targets that are set at the state level. But, you know, for the county, our general plan requires us to adopt a climate action plan. So that is what we use, I think, you know, to say that we have to do this. And I don't know where, so like various different counties have had troubles in like the legal sense if they don't put something like that into their general plan, because they need as when they do an EIR, an environmental impact report on their general plan or something like that, they kind of, you know, they need to have these mitigations. So for us at the county level, the climate action plan or the greenhouse gas reduction plan was included, that policy was included as part of an environmental impact mitigation measure. And so this is all kind of getting into SQL where I'm not like an expert by any means. So I think that's where we find our, you know, legal requirement. And I think a lot of other counties and perhaps even cities have kind of come across similar like junctions where they had to put something into their general plan to mitigate the effects of development and so on, required by CEQA. So I know that wasn't a straightforward answer.
I appreciate that, Ashley. Yeah, my initial feeling is just that if the county's plan only applies to the unincorporated county, there could be a patchwork response, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, as to whether the local cities will do one at all.
Yeah.
And I think the bigger question is the resources they'll have available to do one. I do like what you said about making as much of the county's plan applicable and usable by local cities. I just worry about cities with fewer resources like Seaside, not being able to come up with a robust plan simply because of our revenue limitations, especially in a year like this, while more resourced cities on the peninsula may be able to go ahead with really robust planning. So I guess I'm just a little disappointed, but not surprised to hear that it looks like the cities will not be included in a countywide plan other than as stakeholders.
Yeah. Let me say, like, also this way, I think if the city of Seaside is, interested, so in being involved more than what I have heard from other cities, I don't think that there's any reason why we couldn't include them. I don't think it necessarily adds to the cost that much of doing the plan. It's more about having a plan adopted, and sort of like the difference between including what the strategies are for a city and the strategies are for the county, and having the county agree to some of the strategies that are in there that are really pertaining to a city. And that's sort of where I think we run into some issues. But I would be, if, like, given this conversation and the interest maybe that's being expressed, I can sort of take that back and look at it more closely. Because I just don't think that including a city is like that much more expensive. The part of the problem is just in the adoption of the plan. So if the county adopts the plan, the city of Seaside doesn't have to agree to it, as far as because the county doesn't have jurisdiction over what gets enacted at the city level. So we can include strategies that are meaningful for the city of Seaside. We can include all of that. But then if the county adopts it and it doesn't, necessarily apply in your jurisdiction, then we're dealing with a situation, which is why what I think we would need is kind of like a city addendum. And I would have to do a little bit more research as well to sort of see like how other counties have been able to incorporate other jurisdictions in their overall plans. They don't really see that happening very often. I know the county of Sonoma, I believe, was able to do that, but they have like 3 jurisdictions. We have way more than that. So just trying to think about, what it would be like to bring all 12 jurisdictions either together, or is it possible to only include the ones that want to be interested? What does it look like? And using the hazard mitigation plan as kind of an example, because I know that all the cities are involved in that plan, and there's specifics for each jurisdiction within that plan that the county is somehow able to adopt, and then it applies elsewhere as well. So I am 100% open to including the city of Seaside if they're interested. We just need to kind of like take the partnership to the next level and see what that looks like.
Thanks, Ashley. I would love to explore how we as a commission could support something like that. Would love to hear from other commissioners as well about what they think.
That was a pregnant pause to let people chime in, but I didn't hear anyone. So
Sure. I'll chime in.
Okay,
I just usually chime in, so I try and let other people also talk first. I mean,
You're right.
honestly, it sounds like there's an opportunity to help us, to help us by creating a tighter relationship with the county's plan. Then that sounds absolutely worth it. I know that there's a lot more people in the city to go through first, but I would be happy to write a memo from our commission to suggest that we take advantage of the timing and work very closely with the county.
I didn't hear everything that you said, but I think that what you're saying is yes, like let's explore whether the city of Seaside would like to kind of get on board.
Yeah.
Really?
Sorry, I guess masks aren't super good for Zoom calls, but yeah, essentially, let's take advantage of the timing. Maybe the Environmental Commission can help to move forward whatever who you need in the city to tighten this up and work together.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. One is for you, Ashley, and one is for you, Beth. Ashley, my question is on timeline for you. And Beth, my question for you is, I don't remember there being a lot of detail in the general plan update that just occurred the last 2-3 years, but maybe I'm just selectively forgetting how climate action planning was addressed in the general plan update. Because my understanding was that it did, that we might not feel pressure from the county to do a climate action plan, but that pressure would come more from the state. And as Ashley was saying, from CEQA, because if we don't have, my understanding was that if we don't have climate action mitigation measures either in our general plan or have a separate approved climate action plan that details out mitigation measures, then it becomes very difficult to do any project. You basically have to do kind of like a mini climate action plan for almost every project. Whereas if you have an approved climate action plan or you have approved mitigation measures in your approved general plan, then you can reference those for the project. So I don't know maybe you can help me remember what is in the general plan.
I'm clicking through it real quick because that is not official yet. There's I would say, few mentions. It does talk about strategies for climate change, mitigation, and adaptation in the Chapter 8, which is Healthy and Sustainable Community. I'll dig into this a bit more and follow up in an email tomorrow with all of you. But one of the purposes under the general plan update was addressing recent state requirements regarding climate change and transportation.
Yeah.
I don't see anything that specifically returns any language on climate action plan, but there is a lot of mention of climate change.
Okay. We just went through, we're still in the process of the EIR for the campus to do their update. And we just went through a climate action plan as well. And there was just a lot of interaction between those two plans. And then Ashley, the timeline, what's your timeline?
Okay, so the general plan requires that the plan be considered for adoption by the end of 2022. So here we are. We have 24 months basically, which I think that for adoption, we need like 4 to 6 months. So I'd like to have the plan completed and reviewed in the next 18 months. And so we're working on an RFP. I could, like put in the RFP, because what I'm doing is breaking things out by task, and I could put into it like Seaside addendum or something, or community addendums, and see what it would cost. I mean, the cost range for a climate action plan is like, from $30,000 to, $250,000 when you work with a consultant. So it just really depends on what you're having them do. So what I feel like is that, well, even more than 250,000, but if we're, if the county is footing the bill for like a facilitation aspect and kind of like the plan draft and everything, like I think that the technical analysis, which is what you'd really need to be able to like forecast your emissions, specifically in the city of Seaside, and see what strategies would line up to specifically reduce the emissions in Seaside by a desired amount, then I think we could get it down really to like somewhere around 25,000 or less. And that's not so much that, you know, it's totally out of the question maybe. I mean, I don't know anything about the budget, but anyway, that's what I'm saying. And I think the strategy analysis for us, like the stakeholder engagement, we really want to get started on no later than March. But that's sort of like the high level, the visioning, goal setting stuff. And then I think the strategies and the evaluation of the strategies is more like over the summer and fall. So, and anyway, things seem to really like take a lot longer than I'm planning all the time. So if that's my timeline, then, you know, it could be different. But anyway, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from commission members, commissioners? Okay. Beth, are there any public comments?
None.
Okay. Ashley, thank you so much. I think the ultimate decision on pursuing this is above our sort of level. But this might be something good to as Kristen said, you know, draft a letter of support for, or think through in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
So I can talk to Beth and talk to you.
Okay. And I would just say it'll be interesting for us to see, you know, where all the emissions fall once AMBAG releases their studies, because, you know, I mean, if we look at it and we're like, okay, the county is responsible for whatever, and the cities are responsible for this other amount. And, you know, by doing a countywide climate action plan, we're only really looking at this much. I mean, that'll kind of help us to generate maybe some support. And like I said, you know, I really want to make it as inclusive as possible without like delaying the adoption or preventing the adoption at the county level. So whatever I can do, you know, please let me know.
Great. Thank you so much. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, take care.
You too.
Okay. All right. The next 3 items on the agenda are subcommittee updates. The first one is for the priority impact plastic pollution prevention policy. Got all the P's in there. I'll provide a bit of an overview, and then Kira and Mariana, if you guys want to jump in, please feel free to do so. Our subcommittee has met a couple of times since our last meeting in August, and we had begun going down the path of doing kind of an interim step, encouraging businesses, especially that businesses that offer to-go items, to-go food items, to voluntarily not put any to-go-ware into to-go orders. So that means like cutlery, plastic spoons, forks, knives, condiment packets, with the understanding that most people, when they're getting to-go orders these days, are bringing them home and eating them, and they have utensils and condiments for the most part at home. So we went through a couple iterations of a draft policy, and I can actually share what one of our last versions was if you want to see it. It was this. So the idea is that there would be a sign similar to this posted in the entranceway and then next to the register. And then there'd be a sign in the back of the, in the food prep area that would basically just be even more bold and say, stop, don't put utensils, napkins, condiments in unless specifically requested by the customer. So we're still sort of thinking through how to get those out to businesses. In the meantime, now that the election has occurred and we have some more solid foundation with knowing who our council members will be going forward, we're also starting to reignite the process of actually having the policy go forward to council for approval, hopefully. And that is kind of where we are. Kira has reached out to council members that we'd like to speak with and sort of get input on, council members that have, raised some objections or concerns or questions in the past, just to get them re-engaged in the process. And then I'll be reaching out to new council members just as sort of a general welcome and introduction from our committee, but I'll also be mentioning this policy as well. Kira or Mariana, do you want to add anything that I maybe forgot?
I think you covered it pretty well. I'm not sure. I'm just speaking for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add that I think we understand that hearing suggestions on the draft ordinance from the stakeholders who have raised concerns in the past is a really important next step that we recognize. I think the barrier is getting from these general objections to specific suggestions for editing the ordinance. So it's been a little bit of a struggle to get that engagement, but that's where the focus is. It is a time of transition. We have a new council member, but I think we are very sensitive at this time to the fact that restaurants in Seaside, who are not the only businesses affected by this draft ordinance, should it be signed and passed and implemented, but they are probably the largest and primary business group that would be affected. They've had a really hard year, and we're quite aware of that. And so I think the most meaningful engagement will be bringing restaurant owners to the table, because what we hear consistently is that that members of the community and the business community do support the goals of reducing plastic pollution in our city, and that there is sort of a moral alignment or philosophical alignment with the goals, but the challenge is going to be trying to figure out the most cost-effective ways to do it. So we really need that engagement with the business community, and in a time when we can't really approach people face to face, I see that as the challenge that we need to focus on in the next few months. Knowing that that's going to take a little bit of time, we're looking at bringing it back to the council maybe in the spring, which would be a year from the last time we were poised to bring it to the council. And if anybody has ideas about how to most effectively engage the restaurant community in suggesting those, specific changes in a way that supports small businesses and helps keep Seaside beautiful, that would be most welcome from the community, from the commission, from the city.
Thanks, Kira. We did go back and just take a look briefly at the policy. There's just a couple of things that we'd need to change, like deadlines. The implementation deadline originally was set for January of 2021. So there'd be some minor changes like that. And I just put the link to the policy in the chat if anybody wanted to open it and take a look.
And I guess I just want to add to what Kira was saying and, being sensitive to the businesses and how they've been affected by the pandemic. Also, I think one of the things that we are also considering is how we can support funding wise. So whether it's getting in contact with the Green Business Network or any other suggestions would be welcomed.
Yeah.
So lately I tried to open the link and it said I had to request access. So I wanted to take a look at the draft another time to be able to provide comments if I have any. But thanks for you guys' work on this as a subcommittee. Glad to see progress, and I like the approach right now around the reduction of use of to-go materials by trying to do that outreach. It's a way to kind of bridge the gap in time right now. I wanted to just mention, kind of related to your subcommittee's work, for those who don't already know, that a small business, unfortunately not quite in Seaside, but in Sand City nearby, has opened, which is focused on reducing waste and does have a refill station for personal care products, household cleaning products, and things of that nature. And that might be a place to look also for models for businesses in Seaside that might support, reusables and refills around what are typically packaged in plastic disposable products.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I think echoing Mariana and Kira, the only thing I would add is, Kira made the point, a good point during one of our recent subcommittee meetings that, by really holding back on the policy because of economic concerns can sort of undermine some of our original argument about how this is still, it's economically viable and it's a good move for businesses to make, is that, let's just set aside economic hardships. I think just the capacity of businesses to sort of take on and change something, I think about my capacity just as a human being and how that's changed over time. And I think businesses are probably facing something similar in the sense of like, there's just changes to if they can be open and what they can do and different just regulations and the pressure that they're under. So I want to recognize that as well, just the mental load of these changes. But we will move forward. Any other comment or public comment, Beth?
No public comment.
Okay. Yeah, just noting. Yep. Thank you, Kristen, for the chat. Moving on to the Habitat Subcommittee. Laura, would you like to go?
Hi, everybody. So I won the lottery this time. Everybody came and gave my update for me in the form of Diane's presentation and Robert's. So as a subcommittee, we haven't actually properly met, but Lacey and I both steward the Beta Park area, and so we have engaged a number of times, and Kristen's been able to join us out there for a planting day. So basically the big news is, yes, all of our plants have now been distributed. Very large majority of what remained in pots at Return of the Natives has been transferred to Havana Solis, to the project that Robert Daniels spoke about earlier. So they are stewarding that area and those plants, and otherwise we had several planting events, including at Beta Park. Some more plants have been put in at Farallones, Durant Park. Kristen had taken some plants and I don't recall where they were put, so she can speak up on that earlier or later. I have continued to communicate and liaise with our community partners through Sustainable Seaside. They have provided some irrigation materials, which I intend to install at Beta Park in order to make irrigation a little bit more functional. That ends up taking quite a bit of time to hand water one plant at a time. And as we've expanded our planting area there, and it's not raining yet, I'm looking forward to getting that work done sometime soon. For other people and community members, stewards who have other plantings and are interested in having some irrigation, drip irrigation installed, it still requires a person on site during any irrigation event. It can't just be automated. This is it's a partial help. But if anybody's interested in that, we can definitely make that happen through support from Sustainable Seaside. Have met with FOSPA as well. They will be having a work day, incidentally, this coming Saturday at Highland Otis Park. They will be doing some cleanup as well as some planting, putting in a few additional pollinator plants there as well. So that's 10 a.m. on Saturday, December 12th. As Diane mentioned, right, I've been liaising with the Parks and Recreation Commission, mostly focused on Diane's project, which is the tree planting, primarily providing suggestions on pollinator friendly and native trees and shrubs that I think would be appropriate for our community. And aside from that, I think that pretty much covers the update for Habitat Subcommittee, unless Lacey and Kristen have anything to add.
I have a question. I was out at Return of the Natives today, dropping off some acorns. And I took a look at some of the plants that were out there, and I'm going to just try holding my phone up to the screen so we'll see if this works. If the plants look like this, they're kind of dry and brittle or brown. Do they have any hope of recovering?
It's very hard to say. It depends on what the plants are. It depends on what they are, and it depends on the root system more than anything. So we have seen some of the pollinator plants that we obtained recover from the apparent dead, but I've seen others that haven't, and it just depends on whether or not they have any viable root structure. So really you have to knock them out of the pot and take a look at how the roots are. If they still have a healthy crown, then yeah, they can get into the ground and they can resprout, and it's extraordinary. But sometimes no, they're too far gone.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, the last subcommittee was the Green Economic Recovery, and Chelsea wasn't able to make it tonight, but I did just pull up an email that she sent me last October. So I don't know what progress has been made since the time she sent me this, but I'll just share this Word document on my screen here. So she's been working on developing a website and resources for green businesses. So I'll just scroll through this and you can take a look. And at the last time I talked to her, she was just waiting for a lot of information back from folks. So if anybody has additional information that they think would be good to add to this resource, I'd encourage you to reach out to Chelsea and talk with her about that. Sorry, I'll get back. But I think if we can get that resource up and running, and especially have it up and running sort of to coincide with when this plastics policy continues to move forward, that would be really nice to have them happen together. All right. Any comments or questions on the Green Economic Recovery Subcommittee? All right, we'll move on to reports from commissioners. Is there anybody who has a report that they would like to provide? Kira, did you want to talk about the Monterey adaptation plan?
Did I want to talk about the Monterey adaptation plan? Will you remind me what that is? I'm not familiar. Oh, yes. there was a piece in the weekly that I'll be happy to send around about the city of Monterey receiving a report on their options moving forward to deal with sea level rise. And based on the weekly summary, but the report itself would be a better source, the city is going to consider two alternative schemes moving forward. And one would be essentially managed retreat, and the other would be armoring, if I'm summarizing this correctly. So these are long-term plans, very expensive responses to sea level rise. So this is looking into the horizon at 2050, which and beyond, which is not that far from now, really. But as the weekly describes it, there's a very real possibility that between catastrophic flooding and extreme storm events and then the background sea level rise that's occurring, parts of Del Monte Avenue could move underwater. And so if the city of Monterey were to adopt a managed retreat strategy, that would involve moving the harbor inland and essentially giving up some of the waterfront properties and infrastructure, such as roads and buildings, allowing the ocean to move in and just delineating a new coast for the city. You know, like the harbor in one of the maps, the harbor is El Estero Park. The other option is armoring, which can involve things like raising Del Monte Avenue, building, I think they said a 17-foot seawall to hold back the ocean from some of the properties and protecting the infrastructure that way, which both in a sense are temporary solutions, but armoring is particularly temporary. And the reason I brought this up to Lacey is because the city of Seaside is directly impacted by the city of Monterey's decisions here. Armoring, such as building a 17-foot seawall to protect Del Monte Avenue, has the effect of accelerating erosion around where the seawall would be. So in this case, it could be the city of Seaside. In essence, if the city of Monterey builds a seawall, the city of Seaside could conceivably experience more, faster and more dramatic erosion. So I just wanted to flag that. I am by no means an expert, and I didn't even analyze the report. I simply read the weekly article, but this is a debate that is being faced by coastal communities all over the world, all over California. So I'm more familiar with it just kind of as a broader policy topic around land management during sea level rise. And I wanted to make sure that if the city of Seaside has an opportunity to weigh in with the Planning Commission. I think the Monterey Planning Commission is meeting right now, tonight, to hear this presentation and discuss. But I think moving forward, the city of Seaside should at least be paying attention and perhaps engaging on the impacts to our city of Monterey's decisions, let alone our city making the same analysis and considering similar decisions too. Sorry, Lacey, I sort of improvised that because I forgot you had asked me to speak to it.
That's
Hope that made sense.
That's okay. I had it up, and so I was scrolling through it as you were chatting, as you were talking. And then I just put the link in the chat as well. So if folks want to take a deeper look at that report, please do. Thank you, Kira, for bringing that to our attention. Any other reports from commissioners?
Kristen asked about saying something at the beginning of the meeting, but I don't
Yeah.
know if she's having connection issues right now.
Sounds like she is. Do you want to chat it, Kristen? Is it short enough? Or if you want to call me on my phone, we can connect that way too. Kristen says there's a local educator who wants to use city parks for outdoor education in the future. Oh, like school? Schools? Okay. All right. I'm guessing what you are mentioning, Kristen, is that there may be somebody from one of the local schools that, due to the COVID restrictions and having schools closed, may want to use city parks for outdoor education. And my recommendation would be maybe that they speak with the Parks and Recreation Department first, rather than us.
I would concur. What's the appropriate jurisdiction?
Yeah. Okay. All right, look at that. Chat, translation.
Success. We've overcome technology.
We make it work for us, not the other way around. Okay. The next item is staff reports. I don't believe there are any, Beth, unless you have something.
That's correct. There are none.
All right. So our next meeting before we adjourn would be, I don't have a calendar, 3 months from today or 3 months from November, since we pushed this meeting back.
It's from November, so we're looking at February.
Okay. Do you have a calendar up, Laura? What's the actual date?
I'm trying to see. It should be the 9th, February 9th.
Okay. So mark your calendars. We'll continue to make progress in our subcommittees. Hang in there, everyone. And have a wonderful holiday season if I don't see you or talk to you before then. And thank you, as always, for the work that you've put in on this committee over the last year. We're hanging in there. Sometimes it feels like by, a thread, but we're hanging on there through everything that's going on. So thank you all for your work.
Thank you.
And with
Thanks,
that,
Lacey. Thanks, everyone.
with that,
Bye, everybody.